fly free. I believe, oh, I believe. Will you dream with me?
Good morning, everyone out there. Welcome to Changing Times. It is Wednesday, July the 19th, show number 118, and we have a very important show today. I think this time in life, we have a lot of people out there suffering. We have a lot of people that don't have any joy in their life, and we have a lot of people that have mental illnesses. They have mental problems. They dread going to work. They have all kinds of issues. We have inflation and everything that seems to be negative in our life, but there's still a lot of positive things. And I am Lynn Morris, and our guest today is Synova Cantrell. How are you doing today?
Doing good, Lynn.
Well, I tell you what, Synova has been on our show several times. If you've been lucky to be able to watch this show, don't go away. We've got a 45-minute, very packed show that's going to actually, I believe, change your life. It can actually make your life much better and make your attitude much better, and you're going to understand. She is an award-winning author. She's written 12, 15 books. She also is I think very important. She's a coach, so she coaches people through life issues, and she's a Christian motivational speaker. And she just does all kinds of things. So we're extremely happy to have her today. And the topic that we're going to talk about today is purpose despite pain. We do have pain in our lives, but if you have God in your life, you are going to be much, much better off. And we're going to be talking about that today and going through some things that actually will bring more happiness and joy to your life. And so we're going to go ahead and just really get started. I'm excited to hear what you have to say, Synova. So we have like an introduction. It just says here, pain is inevitable, but suffering is not. And so what does that phrase mean? Isn't suffering inevitable too?
Well, that's what most people think. You think, well, you have pain, so suffering is a part of pain, and you think that that's going to be a normal part of pain. But in reality, it is not. Suffering is actually the way we respond to the pain. Now, suffering actually comes from the way we interpret the event or the struggle or whatever happened. It's how we interpret it. We feel anxious and stressed when everyone holds this mental image of how perfect life is supposed to be. You think you're supposed to be a certain age, you're supposed to have your good job, by then you're supposed to be married, have a house, have however many kids. You have this perfect image of what you think it's supposed to be, and then when it doesn't line up, that causes anxiety and stress. But the good news is we can change that mental picture. That mental picture has been programmed into us over a course of time, and maybe parents, society, however you were raised, whether you were raised in church or not, we have these expectations. And I was one of those overachievers that by the time I was 25, I was married, I was working full-time at the bank, I was going to school at night, I had the second highest GPA in the school. I got to go get awards from people like you when you were in the state, in the house and all that. And so I was really achieving. And then I was teaching a Bible school class at church 3 times a week. And so I had everything lined up, but then I had a nervous breakdown at 25. Nobody should have a nervous breakdown at 25.
No.
Nobody. But that's what happens because my mental picture of what I was supposed to do and trying to live up to this unseen thing, I couldn't live up to it, and I broke. And so this is what we want to talk about. If I had known that all of that suffering was coming from the fact that I was trying too hard to please people that never thought about me anyways, and trying to live up to a mental image of what I was supposed to do, and that I could change it. If I had this information back then, I probably wouldn't have had that breakdown. And so that's what this is about. We want to understand that we are in control of that. Now, I like to give an example. The Apostle Paul, church legend says the Apostle Paul didn't hesitate when it came time for him to lose his life. He ran towards the chopping block. And I'm thinking, now I don't know anybody in a normal circumstance that would be able to face death like that and be ready for it. That is one massive example of how you can be in a painful circumstance and have a different mindset about it and not suffer. Paul didn't suffer.
Right.
He was ready.
Right.
You know, he had his purpose fulfilled and he was ready to go. So he was like, get it over with, let's go. And so we need to understand that we are in control of whether we suffer or not. That doesn't mean it's easy, but we're in control of that.
Right. Well, you know, and one of the things I noticed that you put on your outline is why is finding a purpose so important? You know, and when I think about that, and I've heard Louis say this too, our sub co-host, and probably Don Blackard too. I mean, we all have a purpose, and God created everyone just like He creates every snowflake that's different, unique. He's created every person, just like Raylyn, your daughter that's over there helping Matt today. We are created for a purpose. And so you sometimes don't realize what the purpose is until you find out what your purpose is. I would think that life is a little bit harder, but once you find out your purpose, then we're much better off.
Right.
And so,
well, my father is a pastor, and he was preaching just recently how the body doesn't work properly if one piece is out of line. You know, and we were talking about some problems you've been having. You know, when you have one part of your body that's not working properly, it may not be the most major part of your body. You probably didn't think about it at all until you heard it.
Right.
And then it becomes very important.
Right.
You know, and so we need to understand that everybody has a purpose because we are supposed to be the body of Christ. We are supposed to be what our function is. We're supposed to fulfill that for that function and that purpose so we can join into our spot in the body of Christ.
Yeah, very good. And so what is this, the universal law of create or
Disintegrate?
Yeah.
Well, it goes into the whole question of why is finding your purpose so important. See, in the universe, God puts out a set of universal laws of things that's going to happen without Him having to sit there and say, okay, do it now and then do it again. He sets these rules in motions. You know, if you look out there, there's still stars forming, brand new stars forming. There's stars dying, stars forming. And people are like, oh, wow, that proves something about evolution. I said, no, I don't. God never said stop. He said, let there be. And then He never said stop. So He put these rules in place. And there's one of them called create or disintegrate. And I had a very, very good education. I was an overachiever. I had all the grades. I did all the study. And I never heard this until I was probably 36 years old. Create or disintegrate is the fact of, you know, you'll hear people, gym buffs in the gym, if you don't keep using that muscle, you're going to lose it. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. Well, it's the same concept. If you take an acorn and you put it on a shelf, that acorn's going to deteriorate, it's going to die and become dust. And that's what happens to us. Now, if we take that acorn and you plant it in good soil and you get a little bit of water, you get a little bit of sun, then you're actually going to have not just an acorn, it's going to multiply and become a tree that shades and brings life, and recycles the oxygen for us, you know, gives homes for little animals. It's going to multiply exponentially. And so we need to understand that God gave us a purpose. God gave us a reason for being here. And when we go ahead and let Him plant us, we go ahead and receive that little bit of water, that little bit of sunlight, we can become so much more than what we started out as, because God has a purpose for every tree. Nothing in nature is created by accident, but somehow people think that humans are. And I'm like, no. They're like, well, my parents didn't serve the Lord. My parents, you know, or I was a child of you know, an assault or something like that. That child still has a purpose. That child still has a purpose. And so this is what we need to understand. In Matthew 25, he talks about the parable of the talents. Now, he gave each person so many talents to, to put to the exchangers and to make grow and all this. Well, the last one hid his talent because he was afraid if he lost it, that guy, the master would be mad. The master was mad because he's like, I gave you a talent and you're supposed to put it into the market and it's supposed to grow. See, what that servant didn't understand is he's thinking, well, if I lose this one thing, the master will be mad. That's showing doubt, for one, because the master said, put that acorn in the ground. I'm going to multiply it more than you can ever imagine. But we don't take that talent and we don't put it to work. We don't try to use it in any way. And so talents and parable and purpose are kind of the same thing. When you find your purpose, you will find out, oh, hey, I was born with a knack for this certain thing. I was born with a knack to write. I still, to this day, if I have a brand new notebook, it just drives me crazy till I can scribble something in it, But it took me a long time to find my purpose for that. But once you figure that out and you use your little bit of talent, God will give you a little bit more talent. And the most important reason to do this is we don't want you to come down with depression and anxiety and stress and apathy and all of these things that will, we all know people who have literally depressed and stressed themselves to death. My grandfather on my dad's side decided at 56 he was done. He didn't want to live no more. He didn't have anything wrong with him. He just was done. And he just depressed himself to death. And it's because he didn't know he still had a purpose here. And so we need to understand that this is life-saving information. Everyone has a reason to be here. And the moment you don't, the moment your purpose is fulfilled, God will take you gone. There's a gentleman that I've been studying behind, and he literally was born into the Illuminati. He literally was a wizard by a certain age. He was telling people, he said, you know how you dedicate your children at a certain age to God? They dedicated me to Lucifer. He said, I'm telling you, I thought this was normal. And then somebody witnessed to him. He got saved and accepted Jesus as his savior. He spent the next 20 years of his life explaining everything that the Illuminati was doing. And they're like, aren't you scared? He's like, nope, no one's going to be able to kill me until I'm done. Well, nobody killed him, but he literally made his last video or whatever. And he literally, within a few months, he got brain cancer and he died. Within 4 months, he got the diagnosis and he was gone. He was supposed to have 18 to 2 years left, 18 months to 2 years, died in 4 months. Why? His purpose was fulfilled. God took him home. He was ready to go. And so we need to understand that we all have something written out that God wants us to do.
You know what? So Synova, so for the audience out there, and we have people all over the country and around the world watching our show, and we're extremely blessed, show number 118. But think about it. For everyone out there, you have to know, because I've had people say, what is my purpose? Do I have a purpose? Does everyone have a purpose? Yes, they do. God created you uniquely at that time. You were born at that time. Everything was planned. And so then one of the things I think is important, and we might just talk about that a little bit, your purpose may change. And obviously, you know, when you're a little tiny baby, I don't know about the purpose, but I do understand that as we age and we get to an accountable age, we have purposes that God has created for us. And then God creates your whole life. So you may not know your purpose, say like when you turn 40 or 50 or 60, maybe after you've raised your kids and your grandkids and you still have your later years in life, you may have a new purpose. God can create purposes all the time. You have to watch for them and listen and pray. It'd be great if people would pray to Jesus Christ and see what these purposes, these new purposes are, because he has plans for you the whole time, right?
Yeah. And that goes back to the mental story. So we finally get ourselves together and we think we know our purpose, and then our kids leave home and we're left with an empty nest. And so many people struggle with depression and anxiety from that because they're like, well, what's my purpose now? And if they don't find another purpose, they will literally start getting sick. And you've seen women that just stress themselves to death. And so we want to realize that God has a purpose for us in each stage. And then I know some senior citizens that they can't do things like they used to do things, so they think their purpose is over. They're like, well, what's the point now? And I'm like, you have so much wisdom and guidance that you could be giving the younger generation. You have so much knowledge that people don't have. You have so much more time to be the prayer warrior that this country needs. You know, there are so many purposes that you could have, and it's about not giving up. It's time to get up. I had to put that on a sticky note on my mirror throughout some of this last ordeal that I've been through, because it's real easy to say, okay, well, life's not turning out the way I want. It hurts so bad. Let's just go to sleep. Let's just not wake up. Let's just forget this, and I'm tearing up, trying not to bawl on Lynn. But we all go through pain.
Right.
It's all in. And
so that's a normal thing.
Yeah.
That's a normal thing. So don't think that a lot of people blame themselves. They blame others. They blame situations, but it's a normal thing to have pain. It's a normal thing to not have everything go your way. Things happen, the speck that I got in my eye the night before last that put extremely a lot of pain. I've still got blurred vision this morning, but thank goodness the eye doctor was able to get that out of my left eye. And so things happen, but you have to be brave and resilient and keep going forward and know there's going to be better times. So I think this, again, what I said at the very beginning of the show, this is very timely because I'm sensing that as a presiding commissioner and a former state rep in Missouri, I'm sensing that a lot of people are suffering right now. Yeah. Inflation's not helping. It's not getting much better. I don't care what the government says. It's not much better. And a lot of people are dreading going to work. They really don't like their life. And I think that is really, really sad because we live in the greatest country in the world and we have so many opportunities. But obviously, we have a lot of roadblocks right now, too.
Yeah, we do. But this is what we need to understand. You asked me, you said, what's our purpose? And then you told the audience that God has a plan for everybody. And this is one of those scriptures that you really need to listen to. It's Jeremiah 29:11. It says, for I know the thoughts that I think towards you. God thinks about us. That amazed me the first time I read it. I was like, God thinks about me? He does. Mm-hmm. And then to finish it out, it says, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace, not of evil, to give you an expected end. So he's telling us he thinks about us. He wants us to have peace. He has a plan for us, an expected end. He is so involved in our well-being, and yet we think that we're insignificant. And this is where we need to realize, without a vision, people perish. I think that's Proverbs something 29:18. God knows this. This is the reason why God gives us something to do. See, we have this notion that I explained to my son because I homeschool, so I have the ability to bring in wisdom from different things that public school just can't bring in, biblical things. But I told him, I said, in the Garden of Eden, before sin, before the fall, before the temptation of Eve, what did he tell Adam to do? He said, tend to the garden. Why? So that means that work was for man. Work was here before sin was. We are supposed to have something to do. We cannot sit. Now, I seen a startling statistic that said, basically, if you have no purpose and you have nothing to do after retirement and all you do is sit, you have a life expectancy of 6 years. And I thought, oh my goodness, we work 40 years of our lives to get to this wonderful retirement, and then we die in 6 years because we have nothing to do, you know? And so this is what we want to understand. We have to be doing something. We need a purpose. And then the next verse I wanted to tell you is Jeremiah 32:19. The last half of it says, to give everyone according to his ways and according to the fruit of his doings. And I'm like, wait. He's going to reward us according to our actions, our behavior, our doing. And I'm like, are we doing? Are we doing anything? He's going to give us, okay, I'm going to sit in the recliner because I'm retired. I have no purpose. I have worked all these years and now I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So he's going to reward you according to your doing of sitting in the chair, you know? And so we want to understand that God has a purpose for us. When Moses was done, he took him home. He didn't just hang around for another 6 years in the wilderness and wait around in his recliner to die because his purpose was done. No, when your purpose is done, you'll go. And this is what we need to understand. And so he's going to reward us according to our doing. Then we need to get to doing.
Right. You know, I tell you what, you're exactly right. I mean, so in my pharmacies for the 43 years at Jan, I had 26 pharmacies. I will tell you this, so many people, and I would go from store to store and work, and I knew so many customers in all these different town locations. People would say, I could tell some that were happy that worked and enjoyed their job and things like that. But the ones who could not wait, they would tell you about 6 or 9 months ahead of time, I'm getting ready to retire and I can't wait. I just can't stand my job. I'm tired of my job. And so I would always ask them, I'd say, well, every month when they came in to get their medicines, I'd say, well, what are you going to do when you retire? And the ones who really said nothing, I don't plan on doing anything other than what I want to do. If they didn't have a purpose at that point, and once they retired, what I noticed was within a year or two, those people weren't coming back in my store because they were gone. They were dead because they did not find that next purpose. But I'm telling you, all the older folks like me that is out there, you have a purpose, just like Synova said, until the end, until death comes you will have a purpose. And if you find that purpose, you actually can live longer, because if you're fulfilling things that God would like for you to do, just think about it. Us older folks, we have some wisdom. We have some life experiences that younger people like Raylyn, your daughter, doesn't have. Yeah. They don't have, it's not their fault. It's just time, and they don't have those experiences. So you older folks could go out there and volunteer and help the younger people, help even the older people with food and different things at food banks and stuff. You have a purpose. You've got to pray to Jesus Christ and find out what your next purpose is. It was planned a long time ago, and the whole life was written down. Your life has been written down by God. He knows everything. And so you've got to continue finding that purpose. We're going to take a break, but we're going to be right back. We're going to talk about our sponsors, but we've got some really more important things to talk about when we come back with Synova. So our first sponsor is Brad Pistow, a certified fiduciary financial planner, right located in Ozark, Missouri. Somebody's going to say, well, I'm not in Missouri. That's okay. He's licensed in 3 states, but he knows people in the other 47 states. So he goes around the country and speaks about financial retirement. And he's probably one of the best in the world. He contributes to USA Today. That's how I located him when I was in Florida. I saw Brad, I called it Pistol. And I thought, man, this guy is so smart. And God's perfect timing was, Jan and I had to take our 401ks as we sold our company. We had only so much time to take everything we'd worked for 43 years. We had to go put it somewhere, and we had a time limit. And so I said, boy, this Brad Pistow, we were eating breakfast out, and I said, Janet, this is the type of guy I need. Okay, he's going to help us, somebody like that. I didn't know I was going to meet Brad Pistow because he's in Ozark, right where I live, in between Ozark and Nixa. So that's how God works. And then he has written 2 books, Safe Money Matters and Bulletproof. Both are best-selling Amazon books on retirement planning. He has sold tons and tons of copies, and he gives them away. So here's the number. You can call 417-862-9977. 417-862. No, let's go again. 417-581-9222. 417-581-9222. And if you call that number, Lisa or Hunter will answer the phone. They're going to send you those books. They're going to send you information. He doesn't charge for a consultation, and it's never too early to think about retirement planning, especially today when you see the cost of living. You better make sure that you've got enough money. His plans will fix you up to where you'll never run out of money before you run out of life. Okay. So I highly recommend him. Like I say, I use him. Don's family uses him. A lot of people use him around the area. And so he's extremely good. Our second sponsor is Youngblood Motor Group, John Whitaker and John Youngblood. And so we're going to have a tremendous announcement at the end of August. John Whitaker will be on our show. He's going to make an exciting announcement about Youngblood Motor Group. So we're extremely excited. He also will be on and talk to us about electric cars, gas cars, hybrid cars. Do you buy? Do you lease? All the how do you get repairs? Where do you go? Stuff like that. Just car cost now is the second most expensive thing besides buying a house. They're extremely expensive. A lot of people can't buy new. And so he always specializes, besides Nissan and Kia new, he specializes in a lot of cars that are guaranteed cars. They're inspected and have many things that are inspected. So they're not going to go off the road and cause more trouble once you buy them. And so he's going to be he's been a great sponsor for us, and he'll be on the show the last Wednesday in August. So we want to look forward to him. So we appreciate their sponsorship. And then Louis Michael, our sub co-host, he's a realtor at the firm in Ozark, Missouri. His telephone number is 417-988-1086. He buys and sells. He works with you if you want to buy a home or sell a home. He helps you farms, all kinds of things that he can do to help you. Not only is he a realtor down at the firm in Ozark, Missouri, but he also is a CEO of living life that he is wanting to make sure that you choose life over a suicide. So he's got a great nonprofit corporation, Choosing to Live, and so we want to make sure that you know that he'll be back at some time, and we'll actually have him on and talk about suicide. Maybe we can bring you back on and you'll be our other guest, and we can talk about suicide, because that's really like what he likes to talk about. He goes around to schools. He was going to be a sub co-host today, but he's helping a young man this morning that was in crisis. And so that's the call I got. That's the type of person he is. If there's anybody out there in crisis, he's going to help them. And so that's our sponsors. We're always looking for another sponsor or two. We only have 2 left. We always want to try to get 5 sponsors where we can get a better telephone system where you guys can call us live on our show. That would be a tremendous thing. I was used to that with my 7.5 years on the radio broadcasting, but right now we don't, and we're proud that what we have. And I think we're blessed for what we have, but we can always pray that we get another piece of equipment that I think would enhance our show. So let's go back to our next topic. So
Yes.
So it looks like to me that the next topic that you had outlined is
I think we're on the second page now.
Second page. So
Here.
Oh, maybe I have that. So, okay. So what do you mean in a life's mission statement?
Okay, before we went to break, we were talking about how God has a plan for us. And I was thinking, I was listening to a seminar, and this gentleman said, when you die, you have a eulogy, and it usually says your accomplishments or whatever, and then it lists who you've left behind. And he says it's written by somebody else, and then you can tell people that haven't had a lot of accomplishments in their life, it's just a list of relatives. And his concept was, what if you could write your own eulogy now and then try to spend the next 20 years living up to it? And I thought, I don't like the word eulogy just because I have lost so many people in the last 2 years. It's like, no more eulogies.
Yeah.
I've had to write some. I've read too many. I've been listed in too many, and so I thought, mission statement. Every company has a mission
That's
statement that gives their basic guidelines and values and what their basic concept of what they want to accomplish with their business. And I thought, life's mission statement. We need to actively think about our life's mission. What would we like to accomplish? Now, go big or go home is the way I look at it. Now, you think, well, I could never accomplish that. Well, with that attitude, you won't. Right. But here's the thing. We forgot how to daydream when we crossed over from children to adulthood.
Right.
And God still has that in your heart. And you think, well, I can't do it now. Well, you might still be able to. You don't know. But the concept is, what if you wrote out your life mission statement, everything you would like to accomplish before you reach 100, okay, however long that is. What if you wrote out all the things you would like to do and then spend the next 20, 30 years trying to live up to that? I guarantee you, by the time you do get to your eulogy, they'll have something more than a list of relatives to write about. And then I got to thinking, I was listening to a preacher preaching about God's plan for people and everything, and I got to thinking, do we really understand this? You have your book of life. We all know about the book of life, and we've got our name, imagine our name in gold filigree with our name on there, But here's the thing. Do you realize God has a mission statement for you already written down? Since the beginning of time, since before he said, let there be light, he knew that Lynn Morris was coming, and he knew that Lynn Morris was going to do this and this and this, and I have planned this great thing and this great thing and this great thing. He wrote out Lynn's mission statement. And I thought, what if we could see what God's mission statement for us was?
Right.
What if we could see that? Then we would see how much more capable we are through him, of course. But I thought, wow, God has a mission statement for each and every person. He has a mission statement for me. He has a mission statement for my daughter. And I thought, Lord, show me what is on my mission statement, and then help me accomplish that before I reach 100.
So that's a great, I hadn't thought about that, but that's a great concept, because being in business for 43 years, we definitely had a mission statement, and we continued to improve our mission statement. You don't just, like back in 77, when I first started my first store, you don't just like have a mission statement that's going to be final. That's the last one. So over the 43 years, as we added stores, our mission statement continued to expand and improve on, and to make sure that we gave the service that every customer needed, and that we fulfilled everything that a pharmacy could do for those people. So the mission statement is extremely important. But then I hadn't thought about a person's having a mission statement. But you're exactly right, because God already wrote your mission statement. But if you can be close to God and you can pray every day, that vision, that mission statement actually will become clearer. And then you're right. You need to write down, kind of like I always tell my grandkids now, write down goals. What is your goal for this week? What is your goal for a month? What would you like to see have accomplished by the end of this year? We got 6 months left. What would you like? I'm trying to tell my grandkids, because they're a little different today than we were when we we were a little bit more oriented at what we wanted to do when we get out of school.
Right.
Today, I got 6 grandkids, and 3 now are out of high school, and some are in college, some are getting ready to go to college this fall. But it's kind of, they don't seem to want to talk about it. Some of them don't seem to know what they want to do. And you really won't. It's kind of like getting to Dallas, Texas from Springfield, Missouri. If you have a map or GPS, you can get there. But if you don't have any directions of how to get there, you might get to Dallas, but you might get someplace else. And so it's that roadmap and that mission statement. Those things are extremely important.
Yeah. Well, that's it's funny you say that, because I was going to give a little story that I wish I'd come up with this myself, but I didn't. One of the mentors that I've studied behind for years. I study so many different people. I'm not sure which one, if it was Bob Proctor or Tony Robbins, I'm not sure. But basically, it may have been Jim Rohn. Basically, he said, you're going and you want to go, I'll say Paris. I can't remember what he said, but basically you're wanting to go to Paris, and you get on an airplane, you pay for your tickets, you get in your seat, and then you get in the air, and you find out that the pilot has no idea where Paris is. He has no idea that you want to go to Paris. He's not even sure which airport he just picked you up at. Now, is he going to have the right provisions? No. Is he going to have enough fuel? No. Is he going to know how to get there? No. Would you get on that airplane? No, you wouldn't, because the concept is what happens to an airplane when it doesn't have a any kind of guidance. See, an airplane is off course more than it's on course. You are constantly readjusting and bringing back, constantly readjusting and getting it back on track, because the winds and turbulence up there in the atmosphere is knocking it around all the time. Well, that's the way life is. Life knocks us around constantly. And if we don't have that guidance system of a vision, a purpose, a mission statement, whatever you want to call it, if we don't have that purpose, we don't have that end goal in mind, we don't have I'm going to Paris in mind, we don't have that, life is going to beat us around. And then what happens to the airplane? It crashes and it ends up washing on a shore of some deserted island somewhere. And that's how so many people end up. How many people do you know that end up at the end of their lives and they're just beaten to a pulp? There's nothing left. They didn't accomplish anything that they wanted to. I heard something that sounded so terrible, but when you think about it, you're like, oh my. He said so many people die, and then 30 years later, they're buried. He said because they have no purpose, no mission, no goals, no happiness, no dreams. They stop living. They just start going through the motions, and then 30 years later, they bury them. And I thought, oh my, I don't want to be that way. I don't want to just go and try to survive this day and survive next day and just live my whole life surviving. The animals do that. God put us here for more than that. And this is where, we get into survival mode when we're in the pain, because we're talking about purpose despite pain. We can't get rid of the pain. We can get rid of the suffering or minimize the suffering. But the concept is we've got to have some kind of purpose to keep us going. That's the guidance system that brings us back on course. When you have a big goal set out there, when you have something that you're living for, you have a reason for existing, then it doesn't matter how much physical or mental pain you get, doesn't matter how much life hits you, it's going to bring you through. You're going to have that survival mode moment, but it's going to bring you back out of that survival mode and get back to living. And that's what they're for. See, life's going to hit us and we can't stop it, but we either stay in the storm and they bury us 30 years later, or we learn to grow through the storm and come out of it, and then we can have a purpose again. And those purposes and those visions and because the Bible calls it a vision, we're calling it a purpose or a mission statement, a goal. It all serves the same thing. It gives us a reason for living. It gives us a reason for being here. And that's what we want to understand. We will suffer pain, but at some point, we have got to work on the suffering point. We know some people that they lose a loved one and they never turn their focus to anything else. And that's all they do. And they literally grieve themselves to death a few years later. So they had these 3 or 4 years that I always wonder if they hadn't grieved themselves to death, if they had found a way to find their purpose again, even with the loss of this person, if they had found another purpose, then could they have lived another 10 years? Was they supposed to, was that life mission statement that God wrote out for them another 15 years long? But they grieved themselves to death. And so this is what we want to make sure you don't do, because the grieving comes from that anxiety and stress. But if we learn to focus on something else, like our purpose, our goals, helping other people, then we can find a way to end the suffering. We can limit the suffering. And that's what we need to do. We can't limit the pain, but we can limit the suffering. And that's what I think the topic's about today.
I tell you what, and so we don't want to shortchange our mission statement that God has for us. That's what I'm hearing. And think about this, Synova. Wouldn't it be awful for, and I know it happens, that people approach the end of their lifetime and all of a sudden they kind of wake up and they say, boy, I wish I had done this. I wish I'd have done that. And the truth is, you could have done that. Yeah. You could have done this. You could have done everything that God had planned for you, but you can't give up. You can't give up. God has a purpose for you your entire life, from the beginning to the end, and he knows when the end is, and we don't know that.
Right.
So don't be ending it before the end is really to come, okay?
Yeah. That's the reason why you, like you said, you had a mission statement for your business, and then as your business grew, your mission statement changed. We are writing our mission statement in advance without any knowledge of what's going to happen. God's writing it from the end. Right. He's writing it from the end. He already knows exactly what's going to happen. And so he's got more insight into what we can accomplish. And he's got more insight because he knows, well, you know what, if he follows me and does what I'm asking him to do in his mission statement, then I've got this one and that one and that one lined up to help him. Because see, we always look in our own minds and think, I can't do that. Well, David couldn't kill a giant with a rock,
right?
But somebody was saying, put on the whole armor of God. And they, I visit different churches and things because I play music and things. And so we travel to different places and play at different churches. And this man was saying, well, if you notice in the armor of God, there's nothing on the back. That's because he doesn't want no chickens in his army. Don't turn around and run, And I thought, no. That may be, but here's my thought. You don't need armor. Where was God? He had David's back.
Right.
God's got your back.
Right.
And so if you just step forward to the giant, God's got your back. You don't need no armor back there.
Right.
And so he's wanting us to have enough faith and courage to say, I feel like I would really like to do this. I don't know how. But I'm going to take the first step and kind of look into it. And when you do that and you take that first step towards that giant of a thing you can't do, God's going to say, okay, here's some information. Here's a person that can help you. Here's the next step. And you just take one step after another. It wasn't just one step to that giant. That whole story started way back when David was in the sheep herds and out in the fields. Every time he prayed and wrote a song and played on his harp and battled that bear and battled that lion to save his dad's sheep. All of that journey started back there.
Yeah.
And so, but he had to take those steps. He had to take one step after another, and then came the giant, and then he stepped again. So this is the concept when you're battling depression and anxiety, and because your world's changed and switched upside down and you don't know what to do, just take a step, just one, and say, God, help me with the next one. And that's all you can do. Just keep walking. Keep breathing.
Keep going forward.
Exactly.
Right?
Don't sit and don't go backwards.
Yeah, don't stop. Don't sit down. Don't lay down unless it's time to sleep.
Exactly.
And don't go backwards.
Yeah.
Go forward and trust God, because one step at a time.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I'm hoping that the people today, Synova, I do know. I know as a healthcare professional that we have a lot of people that suffer. They have all kinds of ailments and
They do.
illnesses. As we get older, I continue to have them myself. But God will not give you more pain than you can tolerate.
Right.
I know when I had the object in my eye night before last, and I was really hurting. They asked me what my pain level was, and I said 8 or 9. Well, 10 is extremely bad, and but the doctor was able to find the object in my upper eyelid and get it out, and so God's not going to give you more than you can bear.
Yeah.
He's with you the whole time. So obviously, for all the people out there who are Christians, you've got an advantage. If you're not a Christian today, you can become a follower very easy and just accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, and you can do that. And he's ready. He's ready for that.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you coming in today. We always want to keep our show positive.
Yes.
I think you said that a while ago, and I just heard you talking to Jim Whining, our CEO. Negativity is what sells.
Yes.
Everything that you watch on the news is either death, accidents, somebody suing somebody, this or that. It's all negative. It's all negative on TV. It's all negative on the radio. It's all negative on newspapers. We try to talk about real issues, real subjects, just like you did today, Synova, with positive outcomes and results and positive thinking thoughts that we can hang on to, and hope that you'll hang on to until next week. Because next week we have a tremendous guest. She's going to be Zooming from Memphis, Tennessee, Tammy Trent. And so I know that you're helping right now down in Branson. You're going to be August 19th and 20th. Jill Reynolds has got a conference for women and girls. It'd be great. We'll be talking about that next week with Tammy Trent.
Sounds
so,
good.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Can I get an amen? Do I hear a hallelujah?